Good morning, Morav Rabotai, Beruchim Abayim. We are continuing on Masechet Makkot, and we are on the bottom of the Zayin, Amud Bet, starting the Mishnah again over here. Today's Amud is being learned, Lischut Refuah Shalema of Sarah Bat Mina, Refuah Shalema of Binyamin Eliezer Kohen Ben Malka, Zivug for Gilad Ben Mordechai Ariel, a healthy delivery for Talia Bat Rivka, Hatzlacham, and Parnasah for Avraham Raphael. Today's Amud specifically has been sponsored L'Refuah Shalema of Rachel Simcha Bat Nahid, that should have Refuah Shalema. Amen. Amen. This week's learning of our community has been sponsored by the Dayan family, Cohen family, and Shea families. Bezrat Hashem for ultimate Hatzlacha of all of their families. We are at the bottom of the Amud, starting yet another amazing Mishnah by Machloket Rebbe and Chachamim. What exactly the meaning of the pasuk is? We have a pasuk that talks about a fellow that's in forest and trying to chop wood, and says the pasuk, when you hit the barzel, when you want to chop wood with the axe, something flies off and kills someone, and that's the case of galut. Now, how to read the pasuk? There are two different ways. So says the Mishnah, Nishmat habarzel mikato v'harag, Rabbi Omer eno goleh v'chachamim omrim goleh. If you have the barzel, the metal part of the axe, fly off and kill, Rebbe says in that case you don't go to galut, because that's honest. It's not the case that the pasuk is speaking about. Chachamim omrim goleh. Chachamim say that's exactly what the pasuk is talking about, and you're going to go to galut. The reverse of that machloket is in a case that you had the barzel, the axe, hit the etz, hit the tree, and a sharp piece of the wood of the tree now flies off and kills someone. That will be the opposite case. Says the Mishnah, Min ha'etz mitbakea, if a part of the chopped tree or wood that you're hitting at is going to fly and kill, Rebbe Omer goleh, the Chachamim omrim eno goleh. In that case, Rebbe is the one that says you go to galut. Chachamim hold that no, you don't go to galut. That is already considered karov le'ones. What do you want? What do you expect to do? There's no way for you to have controlled that, and therefore you're not going to galut. Now, where does this machloket come from? Actually, from the reading of the pasuk. Tanya amar lahem Rebbe lachachamim. Rebbe argued with Chachamim in this case. V'chine mar v'nashal habarzel me'etzo. Does it say nashal barzel me'etzo, that the piece of the metal flew off of its handle, its wood? It doesn't say that. It says mina etz. I'll read to you from the side the full pasuk. V'asher yavo et re'ehu beyar. When you come to your friend in forest, Lachtov etzim, to chop wood, v'nitecha yado begarzen, and your hand stumbled begarzen with the axe, lichrot ha'etz, to cut the wood. Now, I just want to pause here now. To cut which wood? The tree, right? Just remember that ha'etz is mentioned in the pasuk, referring to the wood that you're chopping. But then it says, V'nashal habarzel min ha'etz, and the metal flies off from the wood, or flies off the wood. You can read it both ways. Now, if you say the metal flew off the wood, simple understanding would be it flew off from its handle. If you say the barzel, the metal, flew off the wood, it could mean that you hit and the metal flew off the wood. That means it chipped a piece of wood from the tree that flew off and killed. You see how the pasuk could be read both ways. And says, the Rebbe, if you would want to tell me a clear case of the metal flying off its handle, that's exactly what you should say. You should say its handle, its wood. You should say v'nashal barzel min etzo, from its wood, from its handle. It doesn't say that. It says v'nashal barzel min ha'etz. The metal chipped or flew from the wood, which means flew a piece of the wood off. So says the Gemara, ve'od, and aside from that, ne'mar etz lemata, ne'mar etz lemala. Says Rebbe, make a diuk in the pasuk. There are twice that etz is mentioned in the pasuk, as we mentioned when we read the pasuk. The first etz clearly speaking about the wood you're chopping, the tree you're chopping. So says Rebbe, it's a gezerah shava, just like the first etz is talking about the wood you're chopping. Here also it is the wood you're chopping. So Rebbe completely reads the pasuk differently than Chachamim. He reads that the axe flew off a piece of wood from the tree, and that piece of wood killed the person. So therefore, that is case of galut, and the barzel itself, the metal itself flying off, will be karov le'ones, like, I mean, not my fault, right? So says the Gemara, ma'etz ha'amur lemala min ha'etz ha'mitpakea, af etz ha'amur lemata min ha'etz ha'mitpakea. Both of them are talking about the wood that you're trying to chop off, and that's what flew off and killed. Amar Reb Chia bar Ashi, Amar Rav. Reb Chia bar Ashi says in the name of Rav, V'shnei mikra echad darshu. Now we explained this already before. Now the Gemara is saying it in the way that was said by Reb Chia bar Ashi in the name of Rav. That both Rebbe and Chachamim learned their shita, their psak, from the pasuk, from the same pasuk. V'nashal habalzer min ha'etz, that the metal part is going to fly off from the etz. Rebbe savar yesh em lamasoret, v'nishal ketiv. Rebbe holds that we paskin em lamasoret. Now let me pause here and explain a little preface that is needed across the entire Gemara, across Shas. You have this coming up multiple times. In almost every Masechta you have something like this. So when you have Emla Masoret versus Emla Mikra, there are many psukim that are written one way, they're read a different way. And there is machloket across the Gemara when you have a case like that, that is written one way and a read different way. Which one do you focus as far as the drasha of the pasuk is concerned? There are those who say yesh em la masoret, the mother of the Masorah, of the way it's written in Tanakh. That's what we go with. We have a Masorah of how it's written, how it should be written in Tanakh, and that is what we use for drashot of the psukim. And then you have others who disagree. They say, no, yesh em la mikra. I don't care how it's written, I care how it's read. And when it is read in a different way, that's what we go with. We don't care with how it's written, we care about how it's read. So let me explain this outside also. V'nashal, when you say v'nashal, if I would want to write what I say, it would be Vav, Nun, Aleph, Shin, and Lamed. Nashal, it's Nun Aleph, Nashal. When you only write Nun, Shin, Lamed, Nashal, it could be read without any drops, Venishel. That's the simple way of reading it. So therefore, says the Gemara, when you have Nun, Shin, Lamed, the Em la Masoret is Venishel. The Emla Mikra, the way we are told to read it, is Venashal. So what's the difference? Venashal means it flew off. Venishal means it made something else fly off. That's the grammatical correct translation of those two words. So therefore, now all of a sudden, when you're looking at a Sefer Torah without any nikudot, you're looking at it and like, wait a second, okay, so I can read Venishal, I can read Venashal, which one is? So, Emla Mikra would tell me, Venashal, of course. Emla Masoret, however, would say, Nishal, it's Ketiv. It's written in Nishal. So that, says the Gemara, Rabbi is the one that holds Em La Masoret. So therefore, Rabbi is basically forced to learn that we're talking about the case that you hit the axe, and that axe flew off a piece of wood, which killed the person subsequently. That's now simple. For Rabbanan Savri and Chachamim hold Em Yeshem La Mikra. We go after the reading. Benashal and Chazaku Baruch. Have a nice day. Says the Gemara, Ve'Rebbi Yeshem La Mesoret Svira Leh. The Gemara challenges this. Wait a second. You for real mean that Rebbe goes after Em Le Mikra La Mesoret? He's exactly the opposite. Don't you remember what was said by Rabbi Yitzchak Bar Yosef in the name of Rabbi Yochanan? You don't remember what Rabbi Yochanan said? Ve'ha'amar Rabbi Yitzchak Rabbi Yosef Amar Rabbi Yochanan Rabbi, count with me. Ve'Rabbi Yehuda ben Roetz u'Bet Shammai ve'Rabbi Shimon ve'Rabbi Akiva. All five of them hold Emla Mikra. We go after the reading, not the Mesoret. Kulu seviranu yesh Emla Mikra. Says the Gemara, you are correct. Rebbe is saying two things. Rebbe is saying, first of all, I want you to pay attention that the way it's written, it indicates that we're talking about a wood flying off from the tree, not the handle, or the barzel, the metal part of the axe flying off its handle. And ve'od, and separate from that, that's the reason that he needs the ve'od. Why does he need to say another reason of gezerah shava of etz? Is because he himself doesn't hold of emla mesoret. Right? So therefore he needs to come to a second reason, say, well, a read of the pasuk is clear that the etz is compared with etz, and therefore we talk about the same wood that was mentioned in the beginning of the pasuk. That's what's mentioned at the end of the pasuk as well. So says the Gemara, Amar Papa, man deshada pisa ledikla. Very interesting case. You took a large clump of dirt or stone, and you threw it at a palm tree. And what happened next? This caused the cluster of dates to fall down. Date tree is tall, cluster of date is heavy, and it could actually be very damaging. So if you did this, and these cluster fell on someone and killed him. Says the Gemara, Banu lemachloket Rebbe v'Rabbanan. That would be the machloket that we just learned from Rebbe and Rabbanan. That means what? Let's go through it. If you hit a tree and the tree part of it fell, the cluster fell because of the shaking of the tree, and now someone died down there, what's going to be the halacha? So when anyone that knows this Mishnah in Zayin Amud Bet, Masechet Makkot, will say, wow, it's machloket Rebbe and Rabbanan. Rebbe, who holds that by chopping wood with an axe, when you hit and then a piece of the tree flies off and kills, you go to Galut. What would he say? Here also you're Hayav. You hit a tree and a cluster falls, you go to Galut. Rabbanan, who say by the case of the axe, you're Patur. Here also they would say you're Patur. Sounds pretty good, right? Not so fast. not so fast. Says the Gemara, Pshita. The Gemara also was very fast to draw conclusions. Pashut. Well, it's not Pashut that this should be the case. Ma'u de tema. The Gemara says, no, it's not so simple because there's a difference over here. Ma'u de tema de kekoach kochodami. I would have thought that the case of throwing a clump of dirt or a stone on a tree is equivalent of koach kocho. What's koach kocho? If something happens with my direct koach, with my direct energy and push, that is attributed to me. The action that happens from that, it's attributed to me. Koach kocho, it's not attributed to me. If it's an indirect, the power that's created from my power, that's already not my doing. Now, here what happened. When I threw the clump of dirt or the piece of rock, the moment that it leaves my hand, that's no longer me doing it directly, but rather it's called kocho. It's called my power. Now, this stone, you take a picture of it in the middle of the mid-air, nobody knows what happened with this stone, right? You just see his stone traveling, right? It's not traveling by itself, of course. It has someone's energy invested in it. It's not in my hand. If it was in my hand, I'm doing it. It's not kocho, it's me. It's an extension of me. But when I threw it and it's off of my body, what is the power invested in it? My koach. It's not me, but it's my power. So when it hits and it creates another energy, that is koach kocho. That is my koach's koach. My energy is energy. Koach kocho should be patur. So whereas when I am chopping off the wood with the axe in my hand and hitting it and then it flies, that's me doing it. It's not kocho. The axe is in my hand. It's attached to me. It's my extension. I could have punched it. I could have done it with a metal in my hand. It's the same thing. It's me doing it. It's not kocho. Here, I threw the rock. I threw the cluster, the clump of dirt. That is kocho. And therefore, koach kocho will be patur. That's the understanding of the Gemara. Be with us. That's the understanding of the Gemara, that when I throw something is maybe viewed as my power's power. The Gemara says it's coming to tell you that's not considered my power's power. That is considered direct. So the Gemara says, that's considered direct? So what is koach kocho? If you tell me that this throwing and then initiating another koach is considered direct, so then what is indirect? What is koach kocho? Says the Gemara. Let's read this together through. Ma'u detema ke koach kocho dami kamash malan. He teaches us that no. According to Rebbe, what is considered koach kocho? Taka. It's a good question. Says the Gemara, kegon de shada pisa umachye le garma ve'azal garma umachye le kabasa ve'atar tamri ve'azul tamri ve'katul. Talk about the case that you threw the rock, you threw the dirt, and you hit a branch. Now that branch now falls, and that branch falls from what energy? That is considered my energy. Now that this branch is moving, is falling, is flying off, that's considered my energy. So I hit a branch, the branch fell, and on its way it cut off a cluster of dates. It made it heavy, and a cluster of dates now fell on someone and killed him. That is considered koach kocho. That's considered an indirect second power, because my power was the branch. I hit it directly and it fell. Now the falling motion is my koach, as my energy caused it, caused by my energy. Now that created another fall by falling on top of a cluster, and cluster is considered a second level, koach kocho. That would be patur. That would be not going to galut or not chayav, according to even Rebbe. So that's the machloket Rebbe and Chachamim when it comes to this. Next Mishnah says, Hazorek even l'reshut harabim v'harag harei ze gole. If I threw a stone into Reshut Harabim, and conveniently found someone's skull, and that was the end of their journey in this world, then I go to Galut. Now you have to really understand how that works, because if you have 1 million people there and I just throw a rock, what else do you expect to happen? I mean, yeah, I killed him. Is that considered shogeg? Really? We know that the primary requirement for going to Galut is it has to be shogeg. When I'm throwing a stone in the middle of a crowd, that's not shogeg, right? That should be karov lemezid, if not mezid. The Gemara is going to ask that question. Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov Omer, Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov says, Im mikesheyatzta even miado hotzi ala et rosho v'kibela reze patur. Eliezer ben Yaakov says, correct, but if I threw the stone, the rock, and as soon as it left my hand, after that, in chronology, after that, the guy opens the window and sticks his head out, and the stone hits his head. So his head was not there at the time that I threw it. That is patur. Even though that I wanted to break the window, right? I had a great aim, but that still doesn't mean anything, because his head was not there. I was not planning to hit it, and therefore it will be patur. Zarak et ha'even lechatzero. If you threw an even to your chatzer, to your courtyard, veharag, and he hit someone and killed him, im yesh reshut lenizak likanes lesham golev. You have spoken about this. If the person that died was allowed to be where he was, then you're going to be chayav galut. Ve'im lav eno gole. And if he was not allowed to be there, it's my backyard. What are you doing in my backyard? I never told you could go to my backyard. I thought nobody was there in my backyard. Right? I thought I had the right to assume no one is in my backyard. And therefore I threw this stone. You came into my backyard without my permission, and therefore that's not my problem. Shenemar, and we learned this actually from a pasuk that we actually discussed in the previous shiur. Ve'asher yavo et rehu beyar, that when a person comes to his friend in yar, in the forest. Why does the pasuk have to say in forest? Who cares? If it's forest, if it's street, if it's mountain, my backyard. What difference does it make? Says the pasuk, Mahayar reshut lenizak u'mazik tikanes lesham. Just like a forest is a reshut harabim. It's not mine. It's not yours. It's a public domain. You could come. I could come. Anyone could come. Same has to be for any place that the damage happens. If you want it to be chayav begalut, chayav to go to galut, it would be the same requirement. Af kol reshut lenizak u'mazik. Any place that the damage happens, for it to be a scenario of galut, has to be a place that both the damaged individual, the dead person, right, and the mazik, the murderer, they both had to have had reshut, permission to be where they were. Yatsa chaser bal habayit, and that's excluding the courtyard of the bal habayit, of the person that killed. She'en reshut lenizak likanes lesham, that the nizak, the person that got hit, was not allowed to be there. It was a private domain, and therefore it will be patur from the case of malkut. Abba Shaul Omer, Abba Shaul says, Ma hatavat esim reshut av kol reshut. It's a famous shita of Abba Shaul across the Masechta. We'll see that just like the case of the pasuk is talking about reshut, you're chopping wood. There's no mitzvah necessarily to chop wood unless you're doing for atzeh ma'aracha. So reshut is doing a mundane activity. It's excluding any activity of mitzvah. In other words, if the mazik was doing a mitzvah and through the doing of the mitzvah someone died, you're patur from going to galut. What are examples of that? Yatsa ha'av ha'maket beno. It excludes a father that was trying to discipline his child and something went wrong. It was not supposed to. It was not trying to hurt him at all, and something went wrong, and the son passed away. The Harav Harodeh Talmido, same would be for discipline in the setting of a teacher-student. The Shaliach Bedin, and of course, goes without saying, a Shaliach Bedin that is instructed to struck the person with Malkut, and sometimes something goes wrong, and he dies without having been intended like that. It's not Makat Mardut necessarily. Makat Mardut is Machlok Rishonim, Rambam ran other Rishonim, whether or not it's hitting to death or is different. But it's regular Malkut. There will be a doctor, a team of doctors in Bedin assessing how much Malkut could this person take without hurting them, without being put into a compromised health situation. And if that went wrong, for unexpected reason, and the guy died, those are considered in process of mitzvah, and that's excluded from going to Galut, which concludes our Mishnah. We're here, B'ezrat Hashem, we'll start the Gemara in the next shiur. Chazak u'baruch.